가장 아름다운 도시 플러턴에 와 있습니다.
And the folks I was fighting were much larger. You know, life brings about challenges. You have to.
오늘은 플러턴 시의 시장님하고 대화를 나누기 위해서 왔습니다. 너무 반갑습니다.
Well, 빅톡TV를 이로 풀러턴 와가지고 너무 고맙고요. 여러분 반갑습니다.
감사합니다.
네.
미국에 오신 지는 한국에서 태어나셨어요? 아니면
그렇죠.
여기서 태어나셨어요?
74년에서 태어나가지고 78년대도 부모하고 왔다고요.
그럼 5살 때
그렇죠.
미국에 오신 거네요?
네네.
정치는 하신 지는 몇 년 되셨습니까?
My own story is I got elected in 2020, became mayor in 2021.
2021년에 이제 시장이 되신 거네요?
네.
한 가지 여쭙고 싶은 거는 한국인으로서 정치를 하기가 굉장히 힘들 텐데 정치를 시작하게 된 계기가 뭐 있습니까?
쉽게 내가 미국말을 할게요.
네.
My initial journey to politics didn't even exist. I had no motivation or no real ambition to be a politician by any stretch of the imagination. But in 1992, during the LA riots and the aftermath, the Korean community really was left alone to figure things out, to defend themselves, to defend their businesses and their families. And the only representation at all that we had was a lawyer in LA. And the only reason why she was of value is she spoke English. And I think it taught everybody in the Korean community that if we are going to have a voice, then we need political leadership. We need political leaders to come out and be in the rooms and the hallways of power to make sure that Korean values and our culture and our heritage are represented. So we have a lot of now Korean American leaders that are in Congress, but Congress is very large. It is over 400 members. And getting anything done in Congress is very difficult. So how do you represent a Korean community if you are Korean in Congress? Very difficult. And it's challenging for them. They don't have this easy road or path. It's a little bit different when you're representing Koreans that live in a city that has a distinct Korean population. I'll give you some examples. Cerritos, Irvine, Cypress, Buena Park, Fullerton, all have very strong and plentiful Korean communities. When you have that, you are able to be a council member or a representative of that city in a way more distinct and powerful way. You can do the simple things that will improve the lives of those residents in a very short period of time. Whereas if you were in Congress or at the state legislature, these things take 5-10 years for anything to happen in, that residents would see on a local level. So being a locally elected official has given our Korean community a lot better path forward than it had 20 years ago when we had no representation. So, you know, I really thank those that came before. Joseph Cho was the mayor of Cerritos, and at a time when very few Korean Americans were in any political arena here in this country. You know, I think Suki Kang, who was the mayor of Irvine, he was actually the first mayor, Korean American, in any city. And, you know, these gentlemen hold value to me because they've been able to do these things that have blazed a path, you know, and I stand on their shoulders.
네, 시장님께서 이제 정치를 쭉 해오셨는데 소수민족으로서 어려운 점, 또 힘든 점 그런 점이 있으셨습니까?
So when my parents and I immigrated here, we made a home in Downey. Downey was a middle-class white community in America at the time. And I was the only Asian student in my elementary school from kindergarten until 6th grade. I didn't see an Asian student. Then I saw another Asian student, a female, in the 7th grade. So you learn to face a lot of racism, a lot of unknowns, to the point where my Korean name was made so ridiculed to such a degree. My father, when I was 10, changed my name to what it is now. These are things that are commonplace amongst Korean immigrants of a certain age, my age in particular, and I just turned 50 last year. But the challenges that you make is you have to decide as an individual, I suppose, whether you're going to fight back. And for me, it was very important to do that. I did not want to be victimized. I did not want to be a victim. So I fought back constantly. I must have been in 100 fights when I was young. Lost most of them because I was very small. And the folks I was fighting were much larger than I was. But you know, my parents had liquor stores, one of which was extraordinarily damaged and ruined during the '92 LA riots. And you find ways to overcome these things, even when they lost pretty much their home and most of their vehicles after the liquor store was destroyed. You know, they found ways to overcome that. What was difficult for me and most challenging is when I got accepted into university at USC, I only had applied in two places, USC and West Point. So it was either the American Army as a officer or to go to USC, which was my dream school since I was 7. So when I got accepted into USC, it was a very high point in my life, very joyous in nature. But my parents became poor very quickly. It seemed like about 3 months. So I had to make a choice. USC was very expensive at the time. Am I going to continue to go to school there, or am I going to work? And I decided that I would do janitorial work. I did from 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, 364 days a year. The only day I took off was Christmas Day. And I cleaned toilets, emptied trash cans in office buildings, in real estate brokerage houses, in warehouses, in big manufacturing facilities, all over LA and Orange County, to make enough money not only to pay for my schooling at USC and the tuition that it commanded, but also to help pay for rent so that my family could still live in Fullerton. And I have a sister that's 13 years younger than me. I didn't want her to have to move or to change schools. So I did that for 4 years straight. When I graduated with no loan because I'd paid that all off working. And that kind of tactile relationship, it affords you a work ethic that's very important, I think, in political gains. Because as Korean politicians and elected officials here, we can make a choice. We could just do the job, or we could do the job better than anyone else has, better than even American politicians would or American elected officials are. This is the choice you make, and I think that with that kind of work ethic, what it has availed me an opportunity to really work hard and represent our Korean community a lot better than I think I would have if I didn't have those experiences. So, you know, life brings about challenges. You have to figure out ways to overcome them. And while I'm 50 and still have a fighting energy, I suppose I have to be a lot more patient these days.
한국 소수민족으로서 어려운 점 이런 것들이 있으셨는데, 근데 한국에서 이제 오는 젊은이들한테 특별히 해주고 싶은 말이 있습니까?
Well, I would say that there is hope and opportunity here. That you have an established identity being a part of the Korean community in Orange County and in Fullerton in particular. So you have an identity that exists. You don't have to search for one. We have great resources for you. Some of the largest churches in California that are Korean American, Grace Ministries, Sarang, are close, or if not, inside of Fullerton. It shows the depth of our community, the reach, and how important I consider and others consider that the youth are our future, and we've built infrastructure to make sure that they have a path forward. What I would say to all of them is opportunity exists in America for a reason, and maybe more so than any place on earth or any time in history. That said, Koreans have this notion that every child should become a doctor, or they should become a lawyer, or they should be an engineer. And I would tell you, if you come to America, those pressures don't exist here. While there are plenty that apply to medical school, plenty that apply to law school, plenty that apply to be an engineer and at an IT or tech company, America also values its military because it's not mandatory, it's volunteer. It also values its police officers and its nurses and its teachers. There's so many other things that you can do that exist here that you can utilize your passion for, your ingenuity, your individualism that may or may not exist in other places on earth. America is very unique at providing that kind of opportunity. So I would tell everyone who is young, if you have an opportunity, even if you don't live here permanently, at the very least, try going to school here for a few years and return back with that knowledge to Korea to make our Korean society better.
우리나라 교육은 이런 토론 교육이 안 돼 있어가지고 어디 가서 이야기하고 뭐 공개된 장소 이야기하면은 말을 잘 못하는 경우가 많거든요. 근데 미국 교육 같은 경우는 지금 시장님처럼 아무 준비가 안 돼 있는데도 이렇게 말을 편하게 하시고 술술 하시는 게 그 미국의 교육은 이런 게 좀 좋은 것 같아요. 한국과 비교해서 좋은 점이 있다. 어떤 게 있다고 생각하십니까?
So in Korea, the system that children are raised from a very young age is very different. It's very strict, almost military in its nature. Very much so, there is a protocol involved from when you're very young to when you're very old, to everything. How we have protocols to how we drink, how we introduce ourselves. There's a protocol involving business cards. America is not like that. It's very much so relaxed. They value independent thought. In Korea, cities are gigantic. They are large not only in square kilometers, but in population. You have cities like Goyang, which is 1.5 million people. You have cities like Yongin, 1.8 million. You'll never find that in this country unless you're in a mega city like Los Angeles or New York. Instead, you have very small cities of 300,000, 100,000, 50,000 people. And the reason why that is in America, it's very much so about independence, about your right to exist, about individuals' sanctity. And they value that a lot more than this broader notion of collective community that Korea has, or this broader notion of country that Korea has. And I suppose that comes from the fact that we were colonized for so long, this brutal war that existed in our country, coming on the heels of that to try and lift ourselves up and go from a very poor country to now the top 10 in terms of GDP in the world in 2 generations. Remarkable. Usually that is not the case, and it certainly is. We are the envy now of so many countries. But Korea lacks the one thing that they promote here in this country very well, which is individual identity. So this idea of depression that exists or Han that exists in Korea doesn't exist here, because you as an individual in America are valued for you as an individual, regardless of whether you get an A or you get an F, or whether you graduate from Harvard or you don't graduate at all. Because there's this intrinsic value on the individual rather than the community or the collective. It is very unique to America.
우리나라는 그 객관식 문화, 미국은 개성을 굉장히 존중해주고
그렇죠.
이런 문화이기 때문에 아마 그 토론 문화가 굉장히 발달된 것 같아요. 플루톤 와 보니까 우선 첫 번째가 저 LA 쪽보다도 주차도 편하고 모든 게 넓더라고요.
네.
그리고 도시가 굉장히 안전한 것 같고 그 플루톤시의 특색은 시장님께서 어떻게 보고 계시는 겁니까?
The difference between Fullerton and Los Angeles, realistically, is age. Fullerton is almost 150 years old. It started as a very small railroad stop on the Union Pacific Santa Fe Northern Railroad. Because of that, they built out, really the railroad built out Union Pacific, the city. It started, it was one of the first cities in Orange County. There are 34 cities in Orange County, Buena Park, Irvine, Anaheim, Santa Ana. I could go on. Irvine is one of the youngest. I think they just celebrated 50 years. By comparison, Fullerton's 150 years old. And the motto when they started the city was very simple. They wanted to promote two things: education, because they wanted families to move here. So very early on, they made this an education city. So if you look at the city now, there's a Cal State University. It's the largest in California, with over 45,000 students, twice the size of UC Irvine,
Right.
and twice the size of UCLA. There's a Fullerton College, there's Hope University, there are very good high schools with incredible STEM programs and tech programs, Troy Tech at Troy High School, Sunny Hills High School as well. They've got a really good honors program. And then incredible elementary schools.
Wow.
And that's probably as a parent myself, you're always looking for communities that not only have outdoor space and entertainment value where you can take your children and family to dinner, but more importantly, an education base, a foundation that's based upon education. That's really Fullerton.
이 근처에 보니까 그 코리아타운이 있더라고요. 비엔나파게도 이번에 새로 생겼죠. 근데 플러튼에는 코리아타운이 없죠.
없어요.
없죠.
네.
근데 한국 분들이 얼마나 살고 계십니까?
Right now, Fullerton is home to over 40,000 Korean residents.
40,000.
40,000. Okay. So it is, the city itself is only 160,000. So we make up a significant percentage. In my district, it is the densest amount of Koreans outside of Korea.
How many percentage in Korea?
In my district, it's almost 50% Asian.
50%?
50% in my district. So it is a significant population size here. And you spoke about Koreatown denominations that not only Buena Park has done recently, but Garden Grove previous to that, and then of course LA's famous Koreatown. The reason why we haven't done that in Fullerton is for Koreans to have influence in not only this county but this state, and to exert what is rightfully, I believe, our voice and recognize our culture, it has to be something a little bit more than naming a portion of the street Koreatown or naming something else Gangnam City or doing something of that nature. It has to be a lot more significant. In Fullerton, we built a Korean War memorial.
네.
And it's the first of its kind, has a list of every single American soldier that perished in the war. That's significant because it's the first of its kind. There's none other like it in the country. In Fullerton, we started a Korean garden, and again, first of its kind, none other like it in the country. And it makes sense to me, as an elected official and also a resident of this city, that our Korean community have a voice here. I am honored to represent them and be that voice. But we have to be a lot more cognizant about where our influence is to make sure that we get into the halls of power that did not exist for us many years ago. Even 2-3 years ago, Korean Americans, while we have 6 congressional representatives in Congress, we don't have any representative right now except one in the state Senate, none in the state assembly, none at the county board of supervisors, and we only have 3 in Orange County for city representation. Myself, Councilwoman Tammy Kim, and then Vice Mayor Joyce An in Buena Park. So while Korean Americans have made a lot of strides, we're not even close to where we can be, but potentially we have so much more work to do. So I focus on that, not necessarily the designations of Koreatown.
또 조언하고 싶으신 말씀이 있으시면
In Fullerton, you have an elected official that cares very much, though, about the Korean community. So I don't know that there are any speed bumps for anyone that comes here. I think that we welcome all Koreans to come, all Korean businesses to come and use Fullerton as a gateway for their American experience. And I think there's really good value in that you have and are surrounded by a very dense Korean community. Again, if I can cite Irvine as an example, Irvine's 66 square miles, and the Korean population's everywhere. They go from Shady Canyon, which is very affluent, to apartments by UC Irvine. In Fullerton, Korean community is in a very small portion. It's in District 1, in my district. And it's a very large community. On my street alone, we have 11 homes, and 10 are Korean.
지금 이제 한국에서는 사실 플러튼보다 얼바인이 많이 알려져 있어요.
그렇죠.
그래서 플러튼은 모르는 분들도 많아요.
그렇죠.
이 플러튼이 얼바인보다 더 좋은 점이 있으면 말씀 좀 해주세요.
We have soul, I think. Irvine is, there are problems with any city, and Irvine is no different than Fullerton in that regard. But the one thing I can stress to Koreans everywhere is the pace of growth is very important. And Koreans will understand this by virtue of the pace of growth in Seoul. It grew so much to go 5 square blocks in Seoul takes 30, 20 minutes. That getting around the city takes hours during traffic time. If you are not deliberate in growth and recognize that infrastructure is finite and that you have to grow with the pace of infrastructure, so there's quality of life issues. Not only is the land good or the schools good, but are you getting home quickly from the grocery store? Can you get gas in an efficient manner to fill up your car? Can you get electricity to power up your electric vehicle? Those kinds of quality of life issues, we've done a very good job at deliberately growing Fullerton. We are still only 150,000 in population. Irvine, by comparison, went north of 300,000, double our size last year. They will be 350,000 in 5 years. They'll be the largest city in Orange County. And being large, there are benefits. But again, I speak to Seoul as an example. Just because you're the largest doesn't necessarily mean there are society benefits as well.
플러튼에도 뭐 사건 사고가 있을 거 아니에요? 그런 사건들이 뭐 있을 때가 있습니까?
I suppose any city has downsides, and Fullerton has its problems too. Our infrastructure, like streets and roads, could be a lot better, and we are making an effort right now to make sure that that infrastructure that's 100 years old in some cases, 150 years old in others, is modernized. So doing that modernization is an incredible effort in terms of fiscal impact on our city. And we want to make sure that we have public safety, that our residents are safe. So you want to have an ample amount of police officers, you want to have an ample amount of fire department folks. These are the things that we will grapple with as we move forward as a city. But hopefully I've put us in a much better direction than we were in 3 years ago.
이 오렌지 카운티 특히 플러튼 지역 같은 경우는 안전하고 또 학교가 굉장히 좋으시다고 그랬잖아요. 학군이 굉장히 좋고 그래서 많은 분들이 몰려오잖아요. 한국 분들도 몰려오시고 그래서 플러튼시의 그 주택 정책 어떤가 설명해 주시죠.
The state of California offers housing mandates. For Fullerton, we have the second highest mandate in the county. So the first highest is Garden Grove. They have to build 18,000 units inside of 7 years. We have 13,000 housing units we have to build in 7 years. So there are extraordinarily large opportunities between now and the next 7 years for Koreans to live in the city of Fullerton. There are 2 cities that are growing in Korean population very quickly. That is Fullerton and the city of Irvine. Both of those cities, the reason for that growth is the education system, is the fact that it's safe. The communities are quiet. There is a lot of open space, places for Koreans to walk, sit down and enjoy. And then there are businesses that support those communities, coffee shops, Korean restaurants, Korean marketplaces. You know, with all due respect to the city of Buena Park, the story that I tell everybody is there is a sundubu place in Buena Park, very famous. There's many locations. BCD. And if you look at their menu, they have a location in the city of Buena Park, but it says Fullerton on it. And that was many years ago that they established that. They opened that BCD 25 years ago, 20 years ago by now. But what it proves is Korean Americans can shop in Buena Park, and there are many markets and places to do business there, but they want to live in Fullerton. And even if they live in Buena Park, they're still going to school. Their children go to school in the Fullerton schools. So I think primarily what's been great about our city here, and what Irvine's done a very good job at, is maintaining law and order, this notion of safety, and eliminating a lot of this homeless blight that exists in Los Angeles. And we welcome Koreans because of the fact that we have built now the infrastructure for these communities to thrive that may not exist in other communities there. So, you know, I am very envious and very proud of locations in this country that have done such a good job. Pacific Palisades in New Jersey is right outside of Fort Lee, and that is a very large Korean contingency there. The city itself is only 20,000 people, but Koreans make up almost 10,000. So cities like that have done a very good job in providing infrastructure and making sure that Koreans can not only live there in peace, but raise their children there in peace, I think is a great benefit to our community. And we've done a really good job of that here in the city of Fullerton.
이게 직장이 갖고 있는 분들이 많이 있습니까? 이게
I've made it a point to try and welcome Korean businesses here to Fullerton. We opened Puma One, who has a large manufacturing facility here, where they do all of their tofu here too. We have CJ Foods as well. They do all of their cakes and their edible bakery items here in Fullerton. And the largest thing that we've done is we allocated 1 million square feet for Samsung. It is the largest logistics facility that they have in the state of California. It is their primary outpost for all things appliance. So Samsung microwaves, Samsung stoves and ranges, and Samsung refrigerators all come out of Fullerton. So we have made an effort to welcome Korean businesses in Fullerton. Not just small businesses like restaurants, but really we wanted to go after manufacturing to make sure that they had an anchor here.
한국 기업 비롯해가지고 여러 회사들이 들어와 있는 거네요.
그렇죠.
예. 플러튼 시 하면은 어차피 한국하고 친근한 시인데 한국의 다른 도시하고 자매 계련 맺고 있는 걸로 알고 있어요.
네.
어디하고 자매 계련을 맺고 있습니까?
We have two sister cities. One sister city relationship is over 10 years old. That's with the city of Yongin, a mega city.
예, 용인.
And then when I became mayor, I thought it was very important that we extend that relationship to grow our sister cities in Korea and the city of Seongnam.
성남시, big city.
Very big city,
Yeah,
very large tax base. They are now our sister city as well. The mayor, Mayor Shin and I are very good friends. So we've been able to do some really mighty things. You know, the usual sister city relationship is very based on student exchange. You have parents that want to send young students, usually high school age, to a country to experience something a little bit different. I wanted to do something large, much more detailed and in depth. So when we built our sister city relationship, it wasn't about student exchange at all. In fact, that was the last thing that we spoke about, the Seongnam mayor and I. We wanted to build an economic exchange, cultural exchange, and art exchange. That was far more important to me. I have a vision that the city of Fullerton become a gateway for not only Koreans to live here, but more importantly, Korean businesses that are in Korea, small business, medium size, to come here, get a pathway and a roadmap to the U.S. marketplace. And really, you know, I would hope that Fullerton, in you know, long after I'm gone, becomes a gateway for Korean companies and Koreans to enter the U.S. marketplace.
이거 10년 전부터 용인시하고 성남시하고 지금 하고 있네요.
네.
또 앞으로 그 자매계련 맺을 시가 또 있습니까?
We have friendship agreements with the Jeju Island.
제주 아일랜드.
We have friendship agreements with Goyang City,
고양시.
Jeollabuk-do,
전라북도?
as well as Kunsan.
군산.
We have a friendship agreement there, and also with Ulsan as well.
울산.
So a lot of friendship agreements. We'll see if you know, any of them translate to sister city. I think if we are going to do something again, it will probably be with Goyang City. I'm very friendly with the mayor.
고양시는 그러면 내년이나 언제 계획이 돼 있습니까?
있어요. 네.
시장님께서는 한국에 1년에 몇 번 나오실 계획이 있습니까?
I go about 2 to 3 times a year, depending on what my schedule looks like. I serve on a number of regional committees. I serve on all the regional committees. And that takes up a great deal of my time. So, and I have 5 children, so there's a lot of time that I have to devote to my family. But when I have the occasion, when I can find 2 weeks, I do go as much as I can, 2 to 3 times usually in the last 2 years.
1년에 2-3번 정도 나오시는데 주로 나오시면은 어디 계십니까? 한국에 뭐 친척들 있으십니까?
그거를 시간이 없어가지고 못 보고요. 막 뛰어다니고 있다고요. MOU를 사인을 하고 뭐
MOU 사인하고
회사들 보고 뭐 그렇게 해야 되니까요.
그냥 일하느라고
네, 그렇죠.
친척들 볼 시간도 없고
그런 시간이 없다고요.
한국에 오시면은 연락 주십시오. 그래도
그렇게 할게요.
예, 친척들도 만나고 또 저도 한번 같이 뵙고
예.
했으면 좋겠습니다.
네네.
오늘 시간 내주셔서 감사합니다.
네네.
네.